I was born and raised in Australia and I wanted to work in health. I became a doctor. I specialised in anesthesiology. That was really my primary purpose. I wanted a career that would be not only financially rewarding, but from a service point of view rewarding. And when I finally made it as a specialist anaesthetist, the fulfillment wasn't there. I was like, I ticked all the boxes I was told to tick. I completely left behind my anesthesia career. I quit, resigned, closed that chapter, which is by itself a very rare thing for doctors to do, particularly, under the age of 40. And I sold my house, I sold my business, which was also amazing because in COVID times, you couldn't sell a yoga studio. You couldn't barely run a yoga studio. So I knew I had all of these support structures that were saying this is the correct direction for you, even though the logic piece made no sense. So it was a huge, heartfelt, emotional pull here. And I've just been living according more to my design, I feel, than ever before. And now I just feel I have so much more trust in myself, trust in co-creation with life.
Okay, so Anne-Marie, Dr. Ann-Maree, can you tell us who you are and what you currently do? Let's introduce you.
Yes. So currently I am living in Puglia in Italy. I moved here in December 2020. I told this story a few times last night because people are very interested to hear like this very strange life transition or revolution that I made.
Amazing.
So, I was born and raised in Australia and I wanted to work in health. I became a doctor. I specialised in anesthesiology. That was really my primary purpose. I wanted a career that would be not only financially rewarding, but from a service point of view rewarding. And I wanted to have something that I really could be proud of, to, be a really high functioning member of society and contribute. And so I worked towards that, despite many trips and falls and getting back up again for about 15 years. And when I finally made it as a specialist anaesthetist, the fulfillment wasn't there. I was like, I ticked all the boxes I was told to tick. I worked hard. I bought the house. I even opened a side business, my yoga studio. I was teaching yoga and wellness, became an integrative health practitioner. So I was trying to find something that was going to be it, that was going to give me the sense of fulfillment. And I felt that niggle in 2019 when I visited Italy. And so I thought, I think I'm going to move there in the future. I don't know when it will be. And the events of 2020 essentially just quantum leaped my timeline. And I was in Italy by the end of 2020 with no plan. I completely left behind my anesthesia career. I quit, resigned, closed that chapter, which is by itself a very rare thing for doctors to do, particularly, under the age of 40. And I sold my house, I sold my business, which was also amazing because in COVID times, you couldn't sell a yoga studio. You couldn't barely run a yoga studio. So I knew I had all of these support structures that were saying this is the correct direction for you, even though the logic piece made no sense. So it was a huge, heartfelt, emotional pull here. And I've just been living according more to my design, I feel, than ever before. And now I just feel I have so much more trust in myself, trust in co-creation with life. I've invested in a pomegranate orchard here. So I'm just really open to the experiment. I'm open to following that joy, that bliss, and just living life where I kind of just studied and focused and shut myself away and missed out on a lot. Now I want to experience all of it in a rich way. And Italy is the perfect place. Italy is such incredible energy of creativity and joyful living and balance and health and beauty and all the things. And so we're a really matched in this time in my life. So that's essentially it. And now I've got my medical brain. I've got all of that background. I've got my background in integrative health practitioner. I've got yoga teaching, meditation teaching. I've got all of these threads to my bow. And I've been kind of in the human design closet. And then I landed in the primary health system and it was just, I have to do this. This lights me up so much. And that's kind of where I'm at now, is I've managed to bring all of these pieces together with the tool of human design. And it's just giving me so much joy in the work that I'm moving forward with now. So that's hopefully the short version, even though it wasn't very short. It's a big story.
It was a big story, because I remember when I came across you in, I think it was in 2020 that I came across your profile and we were in B school together. And I was amazed by how holistic you were as a doctor, right? At that time. And I think at that time you were probably just only starting to discover that maybe this was not what you wanted to do, and you were still mulling over the whole dream of coming to Italy, right? So
Yes.
yeah, so like can I ask a bit more, like what sparked it off? What made you want to come to Italy of all places? I mean, it's like halfway across the world.
Yeah, and look, I have no formal Italian heritage. I'd never even been to Europe before. I traveled through a lot of Asia as an Australian. That's kind of where we start, most of our international travel. But when I came in 2019, I actually came to Europe to go to Vienna for an anesthesia conference. And of course, if you've come all this way, you don't just stay for a 5-day conference, you tag a holiday on. And it was no question in my mind that Italy would be that destination. So I was only in Italy for about 12 days. But from the moment I flew into Milan, I remember I was in the queue for the bathroom, and I was just like, I'm with my people. Like, I just felt this sense of I've landed home here.
Wow, I'm getting
And
goosebumps.
yeah, and then it just kept going. Like, I felt so lit up, so joyful. And I think particularly now that I know I'm an emotional authority, that was a very, very powerful way for me to get a lot of information. It was like, I'm really feeling something here. It was like it unlocked a key. In Australia, we have a beautiful way of life. It's a safe country. We've got economic stability, but we don't feel much. We're very kind of subdued in a way. It's very Anglo-Saxon, as I've now learned, compared to the more Italian, Mediterranean culture of big expressivity. And I was always told, I'm too loud, you're too much, like you're too excited. And that's classic signs for an emotional authority, when we're told that we're too much, particularly as a projector, because it can be really amplified from projectors. So all of those clues, I felt like I could maybe finally be myself and feel it all. And so it really started that. And at this stage, I didn't know about my human design.
I see. I'm going to share with you your astrology chart a little bit so that we can talk about it from an astrological point of view as well.
Right.
So let me share the screen. Okay, so what we have here in astrology is that this particular thing, you see the 69 symbol here? This is the symbol of Cancer. Okay.
Yeah.
And this basically is what you call the ascendant, and this is the way in which you interact with the world. So this is your first contact with the world. This is the way you're going to interact with the world. This is actually a very important point as well, because this is how people perceive you and how you perceive the world. Now, from a very Cancerian perspective, Cancers can be pretty emotional. Initially when they first see something, or when they first come into contact with anything. But I think the biggest thing I usually see in a Cancerian person is that they're usually a little bit more restrained, because they're a bit shy. And it's more like the crab, and the crab's actually very self-protective. So it's not that they're not big and loud or anything, but they're just like, oh, I got to protect myself at first. And that's where it comes in. And actually, if you look at it, the way in which you contact the world, the way in which you interact with the world can be a very instinctual way as well. That's how Cancer ascended. Interestingly, from an astrological perspective, the planet that rules Cancer is actually the moon. Okay, so the moon is all the way up here, and the moon is in Taurus for you. So it's a very nice, nice placement. But yeah, where it points to as well, because the ascendant's actually like, or rather the moon is actually the ruler of your chart. So it actually would dictate a lot of things that are going on in your life. So one of the first priorities you might have had is really to build yourself something that gives you authority, something that gives you like, some kind of public recognition, that makes you gives you something more of a professional feel, is it? Because the moon up here in the 10th house, and that's what the 10th house is all about as well. How can I establish myself as an authority? How can I be that person that's, you place probably a lot of importance as well on like your public persona more than anything else.
Yes.
Is that right for you?
Yes.
Yes.
It's very true. Yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of
that can be a blessing or a curse, because I think in a sort of low frequency version of that, it can come into people pleasing and censoring yourself. But once you really start to own your gifts and mature, you realize that you have that ability to be publicly available. But then it's the piece of, are you going to show up authentically yourself? Do you give yourself permission to do that? And that's kind of where I've moved through in the last couple of years. Yes, that really resonates.
Yeah, so with the moon in Taurus as well, the moon's also about, it signifies many things. One of the things it signifies as well is the unconscious. It also signifies how you comfort yourself, right? What makes you feel more emotionally comfortable. And what's really important for you is because Taurus is an early sign, there's a lot of emphasis in terms of resources and also material comfort, really, right? Like what
Yes.
makes you feel safe, what makes you, gives you that kind of stability as well. So that's like
Yeah.
probably like really, really big in your life as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's huge because I loved to surround myself with beautiful objects and beautiful spaces. And I hadn't recognized that I had a Taurus moon until a couple of years ago. And I was just like, why do I like sort of this more refined things, luxury things, beautiful spaces? And then when I found out I was Taurian moon, this makes sense. And I've had
Mm,
to really walk through that path because I gave up all of my possessions. All the beautiful pieces of furniture I collected and things in Australia, I got rid of all of them. And in the last couple of years, I've really been living in borrowed spaces. I haven't got to choose what's been around me. And so it's been such a journey and an education into my truth and going, okay, I do actually like nice things. I do actually like certain feel in certain spaces, and owning that rather than being apologetic for it, and also not wanting to compromise ever. I still have very few possessions because at this stage, I don't want to get things for the sake of getting things. You know, they
yeah.
really have a sense of meaning and essence. And yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's really paying attention to exactly what is the, you know, the authentic value that something brings to you, right? Again, it's a
Yeah.
very Taurian theme. Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, so coming back to you, let's see, I'm gonna stop the share now. And I'm also just wondering, how did you come across human design? Because again, when I knew you, you didn't know, you didn't mention human
No,
design, right?
no.
Yeah, how did
So
that come across?
in, I think it was I think it was in 2020. I don't think it was as early as 2019,
Mhm.
but I was in a like a women's mastermind. We'd come through a manifestation course together and we all wanted to keep each other accountable. And there was a group of, I think it was about 6 of us, international, and we would meet every week. And really interesting women, very into a whole variety of things. I mean, we'd met through a manifestation program. And I really liked being in the space with these women. And every week there was something new. You know, there's always these new things, these new fads, these new trends. And I remember human design getting mentioned. And I'm naturally very skeptical. I don't want to jump on board with everything. And I kind of went, it's just going to be another one of those things like the Enneagrams or personality tests. And it's going to be very surface, putting people in boxes. I'm not interested in that. So I kind of pushed it aside, but it kept visiting me. And I think that's always the classic sign. Human design finds you when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And it was in 2021, once I came to Italy, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a chart reading and I'm going to find out what this is all about, because this is my time now. I'm leaving a whole identity and life behind. So now's the time to find out who I am. So let's see what this human design has to tell me. And when I had my first reading,
Yeah.
like so many of us, it's that sense of validation. And being told I was a projector, I didn't know what that meant at the time, but you know, the chart reader was able to talk me through a little bit. And I just felt that reading, I just felt a little bit terrified because I was ready to come and live a quiet life. I really wanted to come to the countryside in Puglia and grow food and live in a simple home and just sort of disappear and sit under an olive tree and meditate most of my days. And, you know, because I'd had such a chaotic, stressful life as an anesthesiologist, as an entrepreneur. So that's what I really wanted to do. That's what I thought Italy was offering me. And when she was like, that is not your journey with your human design. You are for the absolute opposite. You are here to be seen. You're here to lead. I was like, oh no. Kind of reluctant. So I'm not done yet. Haven't I done enough? And so, yeah, I've been kind of moving through making peace with that journey ever since. And human design's been such a beautiful compass for me in navigating that. And so from there, I've had very much a stop-start trial and error. I'm a 3 profile. So this is my world, trial and error. I've jumped into projector programs to try and understand myself.
Yeah.
And this is a real thing for projectors out there. It's so hard for us to see ourselves. And I did some reading from Ra, and he had said the best way for projectors to learn human design is through the other. And I was like, great, because I did my partner's chart and I could see him in his chart. so well. And I'm like, wow, he's really living his design. He kind of left a lot of the conditioning matrix that keeps us out of design at the age of 17. So he was a really beautiful being for me to watch and see all these synchronicities and these confirmations of a human expressing their design. So for a lot of it, I was looking at his chart and learning about him, and that was easier for me to then start accessing my own stuff. So I think that's real key, but particularly for projectors, because we're really not able to see ourselves in a way that protects us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes a bit longer, I feel. It really does. So yeah,
I suppose that's where it comes from, right? Like they say that projectors are really able to see very clearly into the other. But I didn't know about the not being able to see into yourself.
Yeah, we're so outward focused. We can say we're great for everybody else, but for us to take a decision for ourselves, we can really be uncertain. And that's why human design is important for us. Because as a projector, not knowing what you are, you don't have that anchor. And so we're all sitting up in that headspace, making really poor decisions because we're measuring ourselves on everybody else. And that's not our path. So that's why I'm so passionate about projectors knowing who they are, because we can then only be of true service and be true guides. Is we have to know we're a projector first. We have to recognize that. We absolutely have to own our authority. And it will only start to fall into place once those pieces are falling into place, because otherwise we'll be blocked. We'll be blocked. From a projector out of alignment will never find their tribe. Will never find their purpose path. Yeah. So
how did you resonate? How did you resonate with yourself being emotional as an emotional authority, right? Because I saw your chart as well.
I had to go through quite a grieving period with this, because what I recognize is I chose a profession that made me numb my emotions. You know, I was a doctor, I was an anesthesiologist. I was meeting people 5 minutes before a major surgery, maybe, and they were terrified. And I had to hold emotional space for them. I had to not get emotionally involved. I had to not feel. And that was really difficult for me, because as a doctor, year in, year out, if you're taking all that on from your patients, you learn to numb. Now, in a way, I was protected, because with a defined emotional center, I wasn't taking a lot of their stuff on, but I was feeling a lot deeply. But it made me tune out of my emotional wave and honoring my internal emotional system, because I overrode it so much. You know, I just had to get on the job, you know? So I was really conditioned deeply against my emotional authority and against listening to my solar plexus and tuning that instrument. So that's what Italy has probably given me the most, because suddenly I was in this country is like an amphitheater for emotions. Like it's all on show, all of it's here. And so I've got to really tune into those frequencies, because this is what this feels like in my body. This is what this sensation feels like in my body. And also trusting that it's my internal process. It's not for anybody else. Like if I'm excited about something and someone doesn't feel that, that's okay, because that's part of my wave. It's my thing. So that's been the other gift and nuance that I've had to understand, is that my emotions are for me, because that's a really important thing. Because as an emotional authority, if we're with someone that's undefined in their emotional center, they're going to feel us 200%. So my goodness, when we are in an unhealthy relationship with our wave, when we are really low, everyone's feeling that. When we are really high, everyone's feeling it at 200%. And it's, for a lot of nervous systems, it's too much. And it's the impacts that get really, really pushed away by unhealthy emotional authority. So, and that's something I learned with my partner, because he has an undefined emotional center. And I went to this reaction to something, and I was described as volcanic, and I could see. And when I realized that my volcano erupting lasted hours and hours and hours for him, it was a very, very beautiful way to show me you need to take self-responsibility for your emotions. And I feel passionately about that's where we are at as humans as well, because so much of where we bump up against each other in the wrong ways, it's misunderstandings through our emotions and our reactions and responses to each other's emotions. So this piece alone in human design, if people don't grab onto the rest of it, knowing about emotional authorities and open solar plexus centers and undefined solar plexus, and how we or we get attracted to each other, because that's the thing, of course we're really attracted to each other as well. So it's having that awareness.
It's the complete opposite for me, because I'm an open undefined emotional center, and my husband's has has a defined emotional center, and then I have to like, whoa, okay, hang on, this is not mine, but I can feel it.
Exactly.
But I know now how to sort of, not take it too personally, actually. I've learned how to kind of let it wash over me and not get involved in it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it just brings so much more peace and calm and intimacy to relationship because
Mm,
you understand each other on a deeper level. You respect your differences at a deeper level,
yeah,
and then that just
absolutely.
strengthens the relationship. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
powerful.
I love that. Yeah. So, what else is there? So that's the emotional authority and the emotional center we were talking about. I don't know, we can't seem to have gone into human design.
Sorry.
In terms of someone who comes across their human design chart for the first time, especially if they're a projector, what kind of advice would you have for them?
I think what I've kind of already said, find the people close to you and look at their charts. I would recommend doing that sooner rather than later and learning about their designs first. And within that, of course, do your own work. But I feel like projectors can waste time by really trying to understand themselves first to
Yes.
then go out in the world. To be honest, we don't need to understand ourselves to the depth that we think we do good work. If anything, it's stopping us because we're getting into our head. We're trying to make everything logical. We're trying to make everything fit. And we're intuitive guides. So the quicker that you can disconnect from here up, with the exception of a mental projector, but from here up, that's going to be much healthier for you. So, but when you first come to human design, we all get so excited by the intellectual nature of it. It's
Yes.
like information and it's fascinating, and our
Yeah.
brains love it. So our brain, which is not our authority, will grab onto it first, and you kind of have to go, whoa. Let's just keep putting this in my body. Let's try and receive this information in my body and look at as many other charts as possible, learn about the different energy types, learn about different authorities. And projectors in particular, I believe, will start to put the connections together really intuitively and really quickly without needing to know all of it at once. So
Amazing.
Human design is not just a logic framework to understand intellectually. It is actually a practical science. It really is. It is meant to be an experiment. It's meant to be applied. It's not meant to read a PDF and then forget about it. It's applied science.
Yeah, I feel that too, because that's where I find that there's a difference between astrology and human design as well, because astrology is very much like a cerebral sort of process. And interestingly enough, when I started looking at your chart too, I did quite a series of calculations. So there are two things that stood out. Number one is you naturally, the first thing you do come across as someone who's very cerebral, because you do have a lot of relationships within Mercury. You have like Mercury conjunct your Mars, and then lots and lots of relationships with the planet Mercury. But the other part of you is you're also someone who prefers to go against the grain, like what you said, you're the rebel, right? Because there's a lot of other relationships with the planet Uranus. And Uranus is all about, going against the grain and not accepting the status quo and changing the status quo and just wanting to be different, not wanting to be the same. So I saw a lot of that in your chart as well. So that's pretty interesting. You mentioned the word rebel, and then you started talking about a mental process as well. Yeah.
Yes. No, it's very true what you say. Like, it definitely resonates. But I think, a lot of this we suppress. I suppressed a lot of that. I was in a very kind of conforming career and conforming pathway, but I was always a little bit of a fringe dweller. I was always on the outskirts. I was always questioning things, pushing against barriers. Yeah, and like boxes. And then it was fun to see that I went into anesthesiology as well, because it's one of the newest specialties in medicine, and we are classically known as the hippies amongst the doctors. The hippie doctor people are the ones that kind of get into anesthesiology, because it's all about physiology, pharmacology, the interplay, and the experiment. It's like we don't actually understand how a lot of the drugs work. We just follow protocols and procedures, and we don't know what's happening in a lot of the brains that are receiving anesthesia. So you have to be a little bit of a mystic to be able to walk that path and be okay with it. And so I did love that about my specialty, and I knew that I wouldn't have done anything in medicine outside of anesthesiology once I found it as my specialty. And then when I resigned, I said to my director when I was resigning, I said, I want to thank you for employing me in this department because it allowed me to be my kooky, weird, fully expressive self. I really landed in a beautiful department. And I said, I'm leaving anesthesia. I'm not leaving this hospital and your department. Understand that. You know, if I was going to work as an anesthesiologist, this is exactly where I'd be. And I was so grateful for that. So, so yeah, it's, I was always pushing against the walls of the boxes. And that's another thing that I bring back with human design, because people think it's just another system of putting people in boxes. But the detail within it, when you really go quite deep and below the surface, the nuances hidden underneath gives so much extra detail and information for people to really fully personalize who they are. It really is about full differentiation and your uniqueness compared to everybody else. There really is only one you. And I find that so wonderful because I could see it in medicine. I could see that one anesthetic would not work with the same people in the same way. You know, I recognize that Italians and Greeks needed more drugs. Why? Who knows? They're strong, they're robust, they don't like being controlled, they don't like being suppressed. You know, a lot of Australians were like, hit me, put me to sleep, you know, leave me asleep. I love to be numbed out. So you could see these nuances in personality, if anything, but also physiology and the body as well. So I found that curious as an anesthesiologist. And that's why when human design has kind of plopped into my field, I'm like, this makes so much sense as a scientist, as a medical doctor. This actually makes a lot of sense to me. And that was kind of scary at first, but now I'm just like loving the ride. As you say, I'm a rebel, so let's just run the full gauntlet.
Yeah. So how you mentioned PHS. Although I think my audience may not understand or know what this means, because it's quite advanced and it's probably very much about your health as well. So can you explain a bit more about PHS?
Yes. So PHS is the primary health system within human design. And it was a really late part of Ra's work. And it really only started to be even spoken about or taught around 2008, 2009 to 2011. And Ra passed away very suddenly. So my sensation around this particular body of work in human design is it has been cut short. It has not been fully kind of, I guess, released in a way. And the International Human Design School, of course, teaches it, but they are teaching the original transcript that Ra gave when he taught it. I think he managed to teach it twice, and then that was it. And I just feel like he was removed at that time for a reason. It wasn't supposed to come into the conscious awareness at that stage, because really human design has become really popular probably only in the last 5, 6, 8, 10 years max. Before that, it was very hidden and obscured. And so I feel like we've arrived at this moment for primary health to be brought more into the light. And for me, being able to read that information with my medical background, my integrative health background, it resonates. It makes sense. I'm like, this actually makes sense. And I don't know how many eyes could read that material and see that there's actually so much merit in it. And this is the next frontier of where we can go in design. Because I think the greatest disservice that I have seen is that we are so focused on the personality aspect. And there's so much of that we cannot control. It's changeable according to the planetary transits and the auras that we're surrounded with day by day. It's constantly shifting. But our physical design was completed 88 days before we were born. That's our blueprint. That is how our vehicle is supposed to be and move and express itself in the world. The personality is the passenger. It's really just supposed to come along for the ride, and the vehicle is moving through the path of life. So I thought, okay, instead of staying in all the mental gymnastics of a constantly moving personality and passenger experience, let's get back to the body. And it's what I've always led myself to through yoga. You know, it's always been, it's all here, and we're so disconnected in our current culture and way of living. And so now I can see that primary health is the mechanism for that. It focuses purely on the design side, which I like. And it really talks about how we feed ourselves and how we put our vehicle in certain environments, and how that actually assists our authority to actually be presented with the right opportunities, invitations, things to respond to. So it makes life easier. It makes life easier. You will be presented with more correct things than incorrect things. So you build that relationship and confidence with your authority, getting it right. That's going to move people quicker into alignment and keep them there. then the constant gymnastics of staying up in the head and the intellectual aspects of human design and how it teaches us. So I hope that makes sense.
That makes sense to me because I mean, a lot of the time I feel that we're just so caught up in a lot of like exactly like what you said, all the mental stuff and understanding, but it only takes you to a certain level, right, of understanding. Then there's the experiment, and then there's tuning into your body and listening to your body, and at least for me, when I heal myself, I involve my body a lot. My body talks to me. My body, I use a lot of imagery as well when it comes to self-healing or finding certain spots that are not quite right or imbalanced. And I do start paying attention to those areas as well. So yeah, I totally agree with you with that. And I think a lot of the times our body represents our unconscious. So if something's out of balance, right, then your body's trying to tell you something because it's coming from the unconscious. And maybe about 80% of the time we're actually functioning on almost like autopilot, right? What we've been programmed with. So it's very difficult to cut through that just by using our mind. We have to use our body as well.
Yes, and that's where the results show up. I mean, I think everybody, whether you are into human design and astrology or not, we've all seen that iceberg diagram with that small tip of the iceberg being our conscious awareness, and all the power is underneath the water. And when you can tap into that subconscious, that completely changes the program. And that resides within our body. So we get the vehicle right, it's going to have this immense flow-on effect to how we see the world. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to see the world in our unique way. That's what human design wants for us. It's our uniqueness coming into full expression. And imagine if we have a globe full of people that are following their pure uniqueness. We have everyone doing exactly what they're here to fully express and do and be. Imagine how more efficient it will be, harmonious it will be. We don't have, poor super slaves of generators just plonked into factories and offices. That's not a generator life. Sure, you guys are here to work, but not like that. You are also unique too. So it's really, really important. It's really important. Oh, this is fun. It's saying that my iPhone needs to cool down.
Oops.
This is how hot it is right now. We've done such a hot interview. My iPhone is packed out.
Oh, no.
See, I might be talking about stuff that is not supposed to get out to the collective just yet.
It's okay. It will come out. It will come out through this interview here.
Definitely.
So, can you tell me a bit more about what you do then? How do you incorporate this into the work that you do?
Okay, so this is early in my work now because I've been, as I would say, in the closet of human design. I didn't know how I wanted to use it. And I feel like it is kind of popping up as a little bit of a fad here and there. And I did not want to be one of those people because I really believe in this deeply. And I want to come from a space of service and offer something that is not being offered. And I just, I was just, I guess, in the right moment and the right time for all this to come through. And I remembered that one of my most rewarding ways of working with people back in Australia through my studio and also to lesser extent virtually was through detoxing. That's such a bodily experience. It was a very simple process, but people could really experience something in their body. And that was very empowering at many levels. And I thought, well, I want to introduce this dietary regimen aspect, this internal environment aspect in human design and our external environment. How can I do that if the vessel, if the vehicle is toxic, it's overloaded, it's burnt out, it's not able to actually, you're not going to be able to receive and perceive that transition and change. So I wanted to create this reset experience. And I know that the detox does that. And then from that, you start your experiment, because it is always an experiment in human design. You start your experiment into delving into your dietary regimen type. And maybe, particularly if you're over 30, the environment as well is much more important at that stage. So after that Saturn return. So then Detox by Design came to me and I was like, okay, I started working out how it would work, 7-day detox. But one of the things with me now with human design is I feel a huge disconnect with doing group work, because as a projector, we're designed to do one-on-one. We're really designed to see deeply into one person, and in a group atmosphere, that can feel very challenging for us and kind of dilute magic. And also, I don't want to practice homogenizing content anymore, because when I used to do integrative health practitioner work before and this detox, it was like, this is the protocol, everyone does the same. And I'm like, it doesn't land anymore. I want to trust that I've got the skills and expertise at this stage to be able to create nuances in everybody's program that actually support their design, support their experiment. And one area of that is in the fasting aspect, because there's two main types. You are either going to have a brain that copes quite well with deprivation of nutrition, or you're going to have a brain that's going to really struggle. These are our hangry people. I see you. I acknowledge you. You are real. You are not imagining that you get really, really challenged when food deprivation kicks in. So with my clients, this round of Detox by Design, I was able to go, okay, you're going to cope really well with fasting, so you're all good. Okay, you're not going to cope so well with the fasting. Let's not make a battle with your body. You can support your fasting with fresh berries. Like, they're not going to destroy your detox. Be aware if it's a behavior or a real need. I want you to tune into that. So it really helps to refine them to really feel into their instrument and what is conditioning and what is maybe authentic for them, and starting to walk that path. And now I'm a lot more confident to say, also come into this program, you do not have to do a strict detox protocol. If your vehicle, if your body is not in the shape to be able to do that, doesn't mean that you miss out. You need to start where you're at. So I will give you a very personalized version of how you're going to walk through that week of just cleansing and resetting the body in a supportive way. And then you get to start your experiment as well. So yeah, that's really my main, I guess, sharing, and the way I'm kind of structuring my work right now, because as a defined Ajna, and I have the channel of structuring and synthesis, so I really like to put information together. So that's kind of mainly how I'm starting to move into this primary health system, human design, and bringing it into what I'm already able to offer and have been offering in the past. So it's feeling great to bring those, the old and the new, together and bring in an evolution of that.
I see. Okay. It's interesting that you say that you prefer to work with people on a one-to-one basis instead of in groups.
Yeah.
Is it really like such a big difference? Does your emotional authority agree with you on that?
Yeah, it does. And this is one of the really key things with human design and deconditioning. And because, you know, we all kind of get into coaching containers or, you know, business masterminds. And it's like you need a group program and then have high ticket one-on-one. And I'm working with a mentor now who works deeply with human design. And she's like, all of that is true and none of it is true. If it doesn't resonate with your authority, it's not yours. And you can have the perfect execution of a strategy from a different human design type. It will never work for you, because it's not yours. It's not in alignment with your design. And so I had to tune into that, because I was kind of reluctant in a way to work one-on-one, because you're more exposed. I was scared I was going to let that one person down. In a group, it's more generic. It's more, I can't get too involved in one person. They're not going to rely fully on me. So I had to decondition a lot of that and own my ability to work one-on-one with clients more. And so that's been a journey for me as well. And what I've found is when I do that, the depth of transformation that that person can get versus coming into maybe a cheaper group container, that's more powerful. And I'm more about impact and efficiency and simplicity than having complex masterminds and programs that run for 6 weeks for 20 people. And everyone kind of gets in and they're all excited, but it sort of dilutes out, because 5 people it really landed with, but 15 it didn't. And I would rather work with less people and have it so targeted for you. That being said, I think my work that I'm going to be moving into now with offering kind of emotional detox as well, through what we were talking about, emotional authorities and non-defined solar plexuses, that stuff can be group, because they're very sort of broad stroke things. But as far as the real health transformation, that is most powerful one-on-one, because it's so, human design is so specific. And I think particularly because there's so much general information out there in the online space about human design, people can get very lost and confused. And I certainly did. And so I think there's so much value in working with someone that you resonate with on a particular area of your design. It's not about finding that coach that is saying they're brilliant at doing everything with human design and astrology. The niching is so important. It's like, this is the aspect of your human design that I specialize in. You know, it's the generic chart readings, you know, for me, they're not for me. You know, I'd rather give them less and say, you need to really embody this now. Just work on this. I know you want more, but just work on this, because otherwise, without your strategy and authority and living your energy type, the rest, it's the same problem. It's all intellectual. Oh, this is interesting. And you tell people about it, and it doesn't actually change anything.
Yeah, true. let me share with you something from an astrological point of view as well, in terms of
Oh
what you're
yeah.
doing and how it links back to it. Um, I guess, hang on, let me see what I'm sharing. Am I sharing your birth chart with you? Yes, I am.
You
Okay.
are, yes. I can see
Okay.
it.
All right. So when I look at an astrology chart, I'm also looking at what I call the rulers of, or the signs that determine what the flavor of each house is, or what each area of your life is. So when I was looking at, say, the second house ruler, so Leo is on the door of your second house. And why I'm looking at that is because I'm looking in terms of your financials. What pays, who pays you money, or how you're going to earn your money well, and who's going to pay you money, and what does that, what's the archetype of that? So Leo is like this very out there, like a sun shining
Yeah.
bright, right? That's very much something very much like a projector, actually. So
Yes.
Leo
We
is,
all love Leo energy. We love basking in that Leo energy, right?
yeah. So it's interesting. A Leo is ruled by your sun, okay, here. And the sun, your sun is actually an Aquarius sun. So if I'm looking at what value you will give to others, I'm also looking at the house in which the sun sits, which is the eighth house. So the eighth house topics are very much about transformations, death, rebirth,
Uh,
crisis, or crisis management.
yes.
So if you think about being in an A&E department, that's a good one, or people in crisis in general. Going deep into, delving deep into emotional stuff, because we're talking about
Ah,
psychology as well. On the other hand, other people like maybe talking about investments, other people's money, other people's resources. That's another one. You could also say that the eighth house covers things like the occult, such as human design, tarot, astrology.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that could
That
also figure in your natural
Look,
interest
it,
in it.
it resonates a lot because I was raised by a hippie mum that was so into astrology. You know, when I was, I think, 8, I knew the order of the star signs, like it was around me. But then
Mm,
I rejected it and I really went very conventional medicine.
yep.
And I had to put all of that aside. And in a way, it's been in me the whole time. And that's what I love now. It's the way that this has now arrived in this moment. But I needed to walk the journey that I did before, because it was supposed to come together. It wasn't supposed to be one or the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of
Yeah,
sense.
that's beautiful. Yeah, the logical side, the practical
Yeah.
side, the doctor side, as well as the holistic side of it. It's very nice to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens here is that the sun actually has a very nice angle with the planet Pluto. Now, if you put Sun and Pluto together, they form an archetype which my teacher calls the transformer.
Ah, okay.
So that's
This is
interesting, right?
new.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And we've just entered a new Plutonian cycle, have we not?
yes, we have, but Pluto's just gone back into
Interesting.
retrograde right now, so I'm feeling it.
Interesting.
I've got a major Pluto transit going on right now for myself. But anyway, yes. So your Pluto is a pretty strong one. It's what we call angular. So that means that there are a lot of themes along power struggles, obsessions, or just really being how should I say, someone who likes to go very deep and to excavate into things and unearth things, You're not afraid of the ugly stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you remember, you just mentioned detoxification, and that's exactly what Pluto does. Because you need renewal, right? And before you renew something, you need to let go of things. And that's the whole detoxification process, allowing the toxins to come out of your body so that you can allow for a new beginning for yourself.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That resonates. That's beautiful. I
Yeah.
did not know about this angular aspect with Pluto, so that's really useful information. Thank you. How
Yeah.
interesting.
So in terms of, say, the people that you can work with, again, you can cover those themes, but which is what I was looking at, the sun. But Pluto is in the fourth house here in this chart, and the fourth house is more about coming back to your roots, looking at your foundations, or even transforming their foundations. And
Yes.
because it's in Libra, again, it's about finding that balance, right? It's not going too extreme in one place. It could even be about their relationships with their families, or their loved
Yeah.
ones, or people in their private lives. Yeah. How does that
Yeah.
sit with you?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it really does. I can definitely see that aspect of kind of balance, but also walking through the extremes to find that. I think for me in particular, last year, 2022, I was at an opposite extreme. I'd sort of had my lifestyle look a certain way in Australia, and I'd really allowed myself to swing all the way over to the other side, and it was too far. And it was like, okay, where's that balance point? And that's kind of where I've landed in 2023, which is feeling a lot more comfortable. But you need to do both sometimes. You need to sense those out to then know where that middle point is.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, and since learning I'm a 3 profile in human design, I just feel this greater sense of permission to mess up, to go to those extremes, to explore those frontiers and go, oh, not for me. Let's get back to something in the middle here. So, and I'm happy to do it over and over again. And as a 3, I'm kind of like energetically and karmically protected into that being, you know, too catastrophic for me, which I'm deeply grateful for, because that's what we're here to do. We are supposed to experiment. We're supposed to explore, and that whole trial and error aspect. So the transformer, it's beautiful because, yeah, it's all about alchemizing and knowing your ingredients and then how you can actually make them into something different and new. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. And when I look at your career house, so it's all the way up here in the 10th house, right? It stands for your career, your what you stand for in terms of, you know, fame. If you were to look at what you're famous for, what your public image is like, it's very fiery. It's in the sign of Aries, right? So Aries is very, I would say, it can be very impatient, but also very entrepreneurial, very entrepreneurial, and willing to take risks for itself. So Aries here is ruled by the planet Mars, and Mars is right here in the 8th house again. And Mars is about how you, I would say it's also about how you assert yourself, the way in which you fight, right? You fight for your life, fight for survival, right? So it kind of it kind of made a lot of sense, because if you're talking about fighting for life, Mars in the 8th house can also be the role of a doctor, right? Who helps people fight for their lives, right? But now you're helping them fight for their lives in a very different way, because Mars is in the sign of Pisces. So it's not one of those I want to knock you out kind of ways that it will work, but it's more of something that's more instinctual, right? More spiritual, more intuitive, doesn't involve a lot of logic, right? Much more imaginative and creative in the way in which you're going to work this out with people.
Yeah, that makes sense, because as I get very fiery by just seeing the potential for change and wanting that change for people and wanting it to be recognized, and you know, even at a collective level, not just with individuals. But I then come back to a sense of, I don't want to drag you down that path. It's about empowerment. It's about almost coming from underneath and showing you that what is available to you, and having that transformation happen in that way, rather than going, follow me, I'll show you the way, you know, because as a projector, we're not supposed to work from that sort of energy. We're not actually leaders. That's why we need the invitation. We are certainly not manifestors. That era is definitely coming to an end. It's not about hierarchy. It's about, I'm going to walk with you. But as a projector, we'll get tired. So we have to be really efficient. We have to have boundaries. And so it's about just showing you those ingredients and saying, this is what's available to you. And then just stepping back and letting people still walk their journey. And so that's, I guess, more where I come from in a more mature aspect. When I was in the hospital system and quite burnt out, I was very volatile in the workplace. I used to become too much of a patient advocate. I would really get in the face of colleagues if I felt there was a real injustice happening with a patient or a patient. And it was a real aspect to me. And some people hated it and some people loved it. And then more and more, I was getting into more and more trouble in the last year of my career, because I was so I knew I didn't belong there anymore. So I was fighting harder. I was resenting being there, and I was fighting the system more because I just had no place there anymore. So, you know, I would joke to people that I was in my director's office more and more, and I'm so grateful for him. His wife's an artist, a really fiery, creative, intelligent woman. So he had respect for that, and he had respect for what I was able to bring to the fore. But sometimes it was the way I would do it, with this more kind of fiery energy. But now, it's a lot more balanced. And as a projector, I've learned the lesson, we can't force. So that aspect of patience, of leaning back, has been a real area of work and embodiment for me that I'm still moving through. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, that is so interesting how things make sense just by reading someone's
Yes.
chart as well. And how I guess it would show in that way, like that fiery that I want to fight, but when you start to pay attention to fighting for someone's life in a very different manner, like how you're doing it right now, more
Yes.
prevention, right? No, more tuning into the
Yes.
body, a softer way of doing things, which is again a very Piscean way of doing it because it's very
Yeah.
watery, very intuitive and all that. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's like, wow, okay, that works.
It does work.
Yeah. Wow, amazing, amazing, amazing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, do you have any questions about your chart at all? Or
I
yeah.
mean, it's been very beautifully intuitive because I think, some of the aspects are so they make sense with my human design understanding of my human design chart as well. So it's really just beautiful to see how it all kind of interplays and affirms each other, but in different ways, in different
Mm,
language.
mm.
But yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you've gone through. So I appreciate everything that you've shared here with me regarding my astrological side of things, because it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a step I've skipped, because I know that some of the amazing minds and brains in human design really knew astrology very well first. They came from that background. And so
Mm.
it's really powerful for them to be able to just build on top of that. But now hearing how that astrological piece fits into human design is actually really, really beautiful. So I thank you for that.
Yeah,
It's been
welcome.
very, very interesting.
No, this has really been very interesting for me too. How you can still see so many like I would say similarities, right? Uh it's just yeah, like what you say, it's just a different language, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would like to ask, this is not related to me because often projectors don't want to know about themselves. So in your work now, how are you melding these two together? If you're meeting with a client, do you kind of combine them a bit together, or how are you approaching it in your work using both?
Yeah, so like what you said, right? I'm finding that there are a lot of overlaps or like what I can see as emotional authority in one, I can see as someone who's like, very emotional. Like for you, the moon is very, very
Yeah.
strong in your chart already. So I'm like, okay, that totally makes sense. But maybe like what I was saying, it's a bit difficult for you to actually get in touch with emotions because of the Taurian moon. It's very
Yeah.
practical. So it's like, no, I'm not gonna, no, I'm not going to go
Yeah.
there, right? So that's the
Yeah.
initial reaction. But I love how human design just kind of shows you what's your potential, where you can reach,
Yes.
right? So they're not different, but they're just different ways of looking at something. So I really think it depends on the client, really, and at what stage they're at.
Yes.
Sometimes they're not so interested in the spiritual growth elements of their lives,
Mm.
and they're just more interested in, okay, what's my strengths, what's my weaknesses, what can I
And
do?
the astrology would have a lot more strength in, yeah, I see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it really like to me, human design gives you a structure. It gives you the bones of everything. But then when you look at astrology, it kind of colors everything in for you. It gives to me, I still feel that it's much more easy to explain the astrology chart instead of looking at the gates,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
Oh, that
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. And
Mm.
especially how, that's you've identified your strength and where you can work best, and you're just using the complements of each other where it will be best served for a client, which is really powerful. And it's the best way to be mentoring from, or the best space to mentor from. So you really play on your strengths and what you're able to decipher with more ease and what resonates. But then you've got that other toolkit as well that's kind of there that you can borrow from in case someone receives information in a different way and you're like, it doesn't land in this way. There's also this aspect from human
Mm.
design or astrology that you can actually speak from, and that might land then for that particular
Yeah.
person at that time. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Another part is like sometimes if I'm just reading the astrology chart, a lot of them might go like, okay, so yeah, I know this, I intellectually understand it. Now, how do I take it forwards? And I find that
Exactly.
human design is the way more forwards. It's that
Yeah.
experiment you have to go through. Look at your authority against strategy and authority. That's like really the most important thing for me. And
Most
that's how
important.
I move forwards as well. Because like sometimes I would look at my chart and I go, how am I going to fit my marketing plan or my clients into this bucket that astrology has decided? And it becomes a very mental process of trying to fit something
Yes.
in, like, it just doesn't quite gel, it
Yes.
doesn't feel right. And I found that when I started following my own authority, I'm a sacral authority, like yes, no, uh-huh, that sort of thing for me. That's when I was like, oh, okay, I'm using my body to make the decision now. So even if it didn't make sense at that time, I understand now why I had to take certain decisions and go in a certain way.
Yes. And I think that gives us so much validation as humans. And I think when we're feeling validated and understood and seen, we get more courageous to be more ourselves. And that's why these tools are so empowering, because it's people that permission to be who they are, even if it feels a bit weird. It's like, no, that's who you are. Embrace it.
Yeah.
Embrace the weirdness.
Embrace the weirdness. Yeah. Okay. So, one final question I have for you is, how can people find you if they want to work with you?
Yes, great question. At this point in time, my comfortable, happy place to be is on Instagram. And that is mostly because I love video. I'm able to speak and be on video with more ease than writing. It's a bit more laborious for me. So Instagram is a really lovely platform that I can be very visual in how I teach and share. So Instagram is best, and there I'm AMBarnes.LandHome. Now, LandHome is essentially my brand. It also incorporates my pomegranate entrepreneurship on the side as well. So we have juice that is under the brand of LandHome. But my particular passion work kind of took a back seat last year to allow space for that, for me to be a pomegranate farmer and, learn a new industry and see things in Italy and internationally, how we grow food, how we don't grow food. And so my work is with human design also on that Instagram page, but it's all human design now. If you scroll further down, there's lots of pomegranates, but now yes, and it's my classic 3. Like, I just own them. Like, I would never delete older posts for anything, because it just shows it really owns who I am in a richer way. I also have a YouTube channel, and that's called The Whole Doctor, and I started that in 2018, 2019. And that was me starting to move into the wellness space as a medical professional and go, okay, this is the medical aspect of this, but this is the holistic aspect of this. And really, that was more for providing content for people to use. Still to this day, my most viewed video is about how to tell if avocados are ripe. So I have all these weird and wonderful different ways of guiding people. And also I'm on Facebook, the same handle, but that's kind of where I'm at. I have my own app. I don't have human design courses and content in there as yet, but it's coming very soon once I decide that group program aspect, where that's going to land with me, and allow my emotional authority to feel through that and just trust it will come through when it's the right time. So they're kind of the places I live. I kind of keep it nice and easy. As a projector, I need to be invited. So my job is just to be visible, to just keep showing up and be as authentic as I'm able to be with what I love, my work, how I share, and wait for those invitations or become the invitations. And so far it's not easy to transition to that when we're so used to taking action and deepening people and outreach. It's like, I don't do any of that. So please, you are invited to invite me. We can have a conversation and see how we can work together.
Cool. Yeah, being a line 5, I also have a line 5, but mine is the conscious side and yours is the unconscious side. I know that impact is huge for us, as in making sure that, well, for me at least, if I'm doing anything, it's got to have impact on people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that it can have the impact both ways. And that's what I've finally accepted, is we are here to trigger people. And I think before, in a lot of my work, I was scared of creating those triggers and having those projections put on me as a know-it-all, as a savior, as this, as that. Now, I actually am so at peace when I get unfollowed by someone, because I'm like, okay, good. That means that they're not resonating with my work, and I'm getting closer to those that resonate with my work, and that is absolutely okay. And particularly as a doctor, stepping out of that world during the whole pandemic, like, that was such a challenging time to pick a side or not pick a side. And it's made me a lot more braver and trust myself about, no, I'm here to serve who I'm here to serve, and I need to be visible for them. And if I upset people in the process, that's okay. That's the beauty of the online space. They'll find somebody else that's for them. So I think particularly for 5s, it's so crucial. And when you upset someone or trigger someone, that's okay. You're going to do it. Even if you try not to, it's okay. But make peace with it. So that whole people pleasing, playing small piece, just gets shunted to the side. And then that's the power of that 5 as the leader, as the universal force, you know, really being able to show people the universal themes. That's when that can really come through. But if you're playing small and playing safe, you're not going to land. And you'll probably trigger more people than your people being able to even find you. You know, it's that whole lighthouse energy. You've really got to be that lighthouse to show people where you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're a 5-1, right?
I'm a 5-1. Yeah. So it's research for me.
I have huge envy for 5-1s though, because I think you guys are really what people love and resonate with. They want to be told what to do, and they want to be told like really in-depth stuff. So they want people that have gone, this is my thing, this is what I do, and I can lead you through it. And so many of the really successful people in the online space, they're like 5-1s, 5-1 splenic projectors, you know, 5-1 sacral generators. I'm like, 5-1, it's really possible right now. No one wants to see the 3s trip and fall, but they want the 5, you know.
There's another person I was following. I don't know if you heard of her, AMBarnes.
No.
So she's Australian as well, and she's a 3-5.
Okay, I'll have to check her out.
Yeah, you have to check her out. She's like, yeah, trial and error all the way. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
And it's fun. It's fun for people to watch that aren't 3s, because they don't get how we're so resilient, but we are. And they love watching the shows. It's like, okay, I'll show more of it, because most of the time we hide our failures. It comes with guilt and shame, particularly coming down a doctor pathway. If I fail, someone might die. That creates a really unhealthy belief system in the body. So I've had to decondition that and just go, if I fail and fall down, that's my journey. You know, that's okay. And it's interesting because when I look back, I had less crises in the operating theatre than a lot of my colleagues. There were people that we would literally call them, pardon the pun, but shit magnet. Like they would just attract the worst situations, the worst patients. If something was going to go wrong, it would be on their list on that particular theatre. For me, I seem to just avoid a lot of emergencies, you know, and of course I was very good at my job. I like to believe as a projector, I was able to be, you know, very efficient and very thorough in how I worked. But at the same time, it was like, aren't I due for a big anaphylaxis in theatre? It didn't come. Aren't I due for a big like airway crash emergency? It didn't come. Like I seem to just, you know, and then the 3s get called lucky. Oh, you're just lucky. You're just lucky. It's like, no. Like, believe me, we trip and fall a lot. We've got very grazed knees, but we have this weird support where we're very bouncy. And so now I'm like, great, let's play. I'm less scared to play because I feel like I'm going to get supported now. I always was, but now I'm like, okay, let's play together, because I know that I'm going to be looked after, because this is my journey. I'm supposed to experiment.
Yeah, so I'd like to put this out there to my line 3 audience as well. Just listen to what she just said, okay?
Definitely. Ditch the guilt and shame, like trip and fall and bounce back up. It's fun. It's fun.
It's so cool. Thank you so much, Ann-Maree.
Oh, great. It's been my pleasure. And I think also because we had the interview that we had back in 2020, and to sort of see where we both are now and the evolution in our own work, it's awesome. It's awesome because clearly, you know, there is that connection that is kind of ongoing. So when you reached out, I was like, this is great. This feels really good. So yeah, thanks for the invitation, you know, to a projector.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. I think it will benefit both sides. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ann-Maree. Thank you so much. Take care. See ya. Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.